On behalf of Chess Council of India, one of the largest organizations of chess physicians spread across India and few international members as well, and as a state head of CCI Goa, I take this opportunity to welcome one and all for today's all-important masterclass during this COVID pandemic. The topic for discussion today is role of HRCT and Remdesivir in the current COVID-19 scenario, and we have an important national faculty, Professor Dr. Vishnu Sharma, to deliver this talk. Professor Dr. Vishnu Sharma is currently the professor and head at AJ Institute of Medical Sciences, Bangalore. He is a PG teacher and guide with more than 20 years experience. He is the secretary of Indian Chess Society, Karnataka State Chapter, member of many associations, and he has earned his name as a quiz master, and in the recent past few years he has held more than 20 such quizzes nationally. He has held many state level CMEs and conferences. He is a reviewer of many journals. He has got more than 80 publications to his credit. Above all, he is a great friend, very humble person, and much loved amongst all his PG students. At the end of the talk, we'll have some question and answers for discussion. So please type in your questions and send across and enjoy this masterclass by Professor Vishnu Sharma.
Good evening to everyone. At the outset, I thank Dr. N.H. Krishna, the founder president of CCI, my good friend, and Dr. Pradeep Narayan, the founder secretary of CCI, and the current office bearers and all my friends in Chess Council of India for giving me this opportunity to be here with you today. I'm going to share a few of our experiences regarding the current pandemic and the role of high resolution CT scan and Remdesivir in this current COVID-19 pandemic. So what I'll be discussing with you today is a case scenario wise discussion regarding the role of high resolution CT scan with the CT manifestations in brief, few basic facts and pharmacology about Remdesivir, and case scenario wise discussion regarding the role of Remdesivir with a brief literature review. So coming to case one, these are all real life scenarios which we had seen in the last 3 months in our hospital. We have a COVID team comprising two eminent physicians, Professor Nagaraj Shetty and Dr. Nitish Bhandari, and two respiratory physicians, myself and Dr. Harsha. We formed the COVID team in our hospital. So we had a 42-year-old man who was confirmed with COVID. He had no comorbidities. Day 7 after the onset of initial symptoms. You all will agree the most important in when we treat a patient with COVID is to identify the first day of symptoms and what time we see the patient, because most of the dreaded complications start after the 5th day, and most of the respiratory complications usually will be between day 5 to day 14. A respiratory deterioration after day 14 or a new onset of pneumonia after day 14 is quite unusual. That is why the day of onset of the symptoms is very important. So we had seen him 7th day after the initial onset of symptoms. He had no cough, dyspnea or fever. His saturation is 98% on room air. His chest X-ray was normal. His inflammatory markers are not raised. So we would call it as a mild disease, young man without any comorbidities. So do you want to have a CT scan in this patient? Chest CT. The answer would be no, because it's a mild disease. Patient doesn't have any comorbidities, already into day 7 of symptoms. So what does the literature says? Chest imaging is not indicated as a screening test for COVID in patients who are asymptomatic with mild or no respiratory symptoms without any comorbidities. So our patient is a young man, he has no comorbidities, no respiratory symptoms, X-ray is normal, the markers are normal. So in such a straightforward mild disease, we don't get anything extra by doing a CT. Because it's very important that when we have a gadget, when we have an investigation in hand, when we should do it and when it is not essential. Because in a resource limited setting like ours, we should use our resources judiciously. And we also should remember unnecessary investigations will add on to our confusion and it will increase the healthcare cost and the burden. So in a simple straightforward case, a CT may not be required if the disease is mild. So case 2, we had 18-year-old female patient, fever, diarrhea for 3 days, diagnosed with acute appendicitis, needs an emergency surgery under general anesthesia. But during this COVID pandemic, we had seen that. Remember, fever and diarrhea could be a symptom of COVID also, especially in the young. We have seen, I think every one of you must have seen a lot of youngsters coming with fever and GI symptoms, especially diarrhea. Even an acute appendicitis, retrocecal appendix can have diarrhea as manifestations. No respiratory symptoms. Her saturation is normal. No comorbidities. No history of contact or exposure with COVID. Her chest X-ray is normal. No premorbid lung disease. Her markers are raised except for D-dimer and ferritin. But remember, raised CRP, ESR, and other things are non-specific, which can occur in any other inflammatory condition. This patient is already having a inflamed appendix. Rapid antigen test is negative, but RT-PCR report will take 2 days. The runtime for RT-PCR is, even though it is less than 24 hours, when there is high burden of cases, you all know, when there are only few accredited laboratories doing the test, sometimes with a high burden of cases, it takes time. So, but in this patient, we cannot wait for 2 days to operate the appendix. So, will you do a CT scan in this patient? If you ask, I would say yes, because she has got symptoms and the raised markers. Remember, in a patient where we are not able to decide whether it is there could be COVID or non-COVID lung involvement, a CT maybe we can do a CT, because even though the lower respiratory symptoms start after the 5th day, CT may show early lung involvement, especially after 3rd or 4th day. So CT may be done in these patients. So if CT is normal, maybe the risk is less, but we cannot rule out if it is still COVID, because even in a patient who is COVID, the RT-PCR or the rapid antigen test can be negative. So a test, if it is negative, we cannot rule out the disease. So in such cases, we are justified in doing a. So what does the literature says? You can do a CT for risk stratification. CT scan thorax may be done in preoperative cases where emergency surgery is required, COVID is suspected, confirmatory report takes time, wherein you cannot wait for the report. This will help risk stratification. So the same is the case with confirmed cases requiring emergency. We had few more patients who had come with RTA. They required emergency surgery, but then some of them were very old. So for risk stratification, we have done CT in them, even though they never had any respiratory. So in such cases where emergency surgery is required, you may do a CT test, even if the patient is not having any respiratory symptoms, or even if the patient's saturation is normal or X-ray is normal. So we had the 67-year-old man confirmed COVID. Yes, a lot of comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, ischemic heart disease, but no past history of lung disease. Day 6, we saw him after the initial symptoms. He has respiratory symptoms like cough, progressive breathlessness since the last 2 days. On arrival, his room air saturation was 88%. His cardiac and renal functions are normal. D-dimer is high, ferritin is high, chest X-ray bilateral, lower zone peripheral opacity, which is classical of COVID. This was the X-ray where you can see the lower zone peripheral predominant opacities, and his cardiac and renal functions are normal. So a CT is required. Probably the answer in our resource limited setting would be no, because moderate disease, the pneumonia is confirmed because of symptoms and the classical X-ray findings. We are ruled out cardiac and renal cause for the X-ray changes, and no other comorbid or premorbid lung disease is suspected. So in a straightforward COVID pneumonia, where the RT-PCR is positive, patient is having symptoms, X-ray is classical, and you are not suspecting any premorbid or comorbid lung disease, a CT may not give you an additional information. So learning point, CT scan may not be required if additional pathology is not, no additional pathology is suspected. Well, this patient has got admitted into the ICU because he was severely hypoxic. Progressive deterioration despite all the standard treatments with remdesivir, anticoagulants, and steroids, and so on. You is in the ICU for 15 days. Inflammatory markers are high, D-dimer is high, dependent on oxygen, 10 liters by high concentration mask, no other contributing factors for hypoxia. Would you do a CT scan at this point of time? Already confirmed case, day 15, patient is not improving, he is dependent on oxygen. Would you do a CT? At this point of time, I would say yes, because maybe we need to see what is the extent of lung disease, what are the structural changes that are taking place in the lung parenchyma. We can stratify the risk, get an idea. So ideally in this patient, we should do a HRCT with a CT pulmonary angiogram, because at 15th day persistent hypoxia, there could be one a pulmonary embolism is possible. We did a echo in this patient, there was a raised pulmonary artery pressure. So the CT will give us the extent of parenchymal lesions, pulmonary embolism if any. So please remember, usually we ask for a plain CT, but whenever we suspect a additional pathology like a pulmonary embolism or other pathologies which require a contrast, we need to do a contrast enhanced CT. But remember, the embolism in patients with COVID are usually multiple small vessel peripheral embolisms, not the classical major pulmonary embolism. So role of CT in confirmed cases, chest CT may be valuable to evaluate patients with clinical deterioration who progress despite standard treatment, or secondary cardiopulmonary complications like ARDS, pulmonary embolism, superimposed pneumonia, or heart failure. So we are during the course of the disease, we suspect there are complications happening. We need to have a better detailed picture where the X-ray may not be sufficient. Yes, we are justified in doing a CT. So contrast CT, only pulmonary embolism or other conditions are suspected which require a contrast. Otherwise, for a straightforward case, you don't need to have a contrast. So this is what the literature says. This is not my opinion. Of course, the Fischner Society and the Radiological Society of North America consensus statement regarding the CT. Whatever the learning points I am putting here are the consensus statement from the RSNA and Fischner Society statement. So this was the CT in this patient. After 15 days, you can see already the crazy paving and the honeycombing and extensive lesions. You can see the vascular dilatations. But then the CTPA doesn't show any pulmonary embolism in this patient. So there was no evidence of embolism. CT showed extensive changes. So once the CT shows extensive changes, you get to know that disease stratification. Any CT scoring more out of 25, if it is more than 15 or 18, you all know that it's a severe disease. Helpful in predicting the long-term prognosis and outcome in this patient. So this patient is likely to have, these are the kind of patients who are likely to have sequelae like pulmonary fibrosis, may be dependent on oxygen for a long time. Well, we had another patient, a 55-year-old male, obese and diabetic, come from COVID, day 9 of the initial symptom. He was in hospital since last 2 days due to uncontrolled diabetes with the taste markers. He had a sudden worsening with hypoxia and tachycardia on day 9. No obvious cause, no cardiac cause, because cardiac events are also quite common in some of these patients with COVID. They can have arrhythmias, they can have myocardial infarction, they can have myocarditis. So his CCG, echo, chest X-ray, RFT, cardiac markers are all normal. So in this patient, a CT is required. Yes, HRCT with the pulmonary angiogram, because a sudden unexplained worsening may indicate that the patient might have had an embolism or a small pneumo which may not be detectable in the X-ray. And the CT will help us to know the extent of parenchymal lesion. So this was the CT in that patient where you can see the extensive pneumonia, and here you can see the organized pneumonia pattern in this patient, which usually occurs after the 7th day. So in patients with unexplained worsening, a CT may be helpful to find out additional pathologies and to get some idea what is happening. We had another 64-year-old male with anasarca, diabetes in the left foot, infected gangrene, diabetes with the left foot, infected gangrene. He was operated. Day 4, he developed fever and cough. Saturation went down 88%. Chest X-ray showed a new infiltrates in the right lower lobe. No other obvious cause for his respiratory symptoms. Rapid antigen test was negative. RT-PCR was negative. Cardiac evaluation was normal. HSCT in this patient, I would say yes, because we need to know, because he has got new onset of symptoms like fever and cough. He has got new lesions in the X-ray. He has got a generalized edema, but whether it is COVID or non-COVID, we are not very sure at this point of time, because he is diabetic, he is post-operative, high-risk case. Unless otherwise we start treating him early, he might deteriorate. So HSCT is required in these patients to determine the cause for lung infiltration. So this was the CT in this patient. You can see small effusions and a fluid overload status can be made out with the prominent fissures and the vessels. So this was the CT in this patient. You can see the fluid going into the fissure, which is classical of fluid overload status in this patient. So CT showed a bilateral small effusions, no parenchymal lesions, which is suggestive of COVID. So he made an uneventful recovery with the correction of his hyponatremia and the nutrition status and the fluid overload status. So what is the learning point here? CT is helpful to detect alternative diagnosis and exclude COVID pneumonia, because most of the patients, the CT lesions will be classical. We'll come to it later. So effusion, that to bilateral effusions, are not so common. So in patients where you cannot determine whether it is COVID or non-COVID, patients with multiple comorbidities like cardiac and renal disease, where you need to have an immediate decision and treat the patient aggressively, CT may be helpful, because a patient comes with acute MI and he has got a fever, cough in addition, or a patient who is having a chronic renal disease comes with pulmonary edema, he has got respiratory symptoms with fever and other things. We are not very sure whether it is a COVID pneumonia or is it just a fluid overload status. A CT will help us to determine what is going on. So 62-year-old male, 9 days after the initial onset of symptoms, he has got cough and dyspnea since 2 days. His saturation is 90% on the room air. Chest X-ray bilateral low lobe opacities, peripheral. His RT-PCR and rapid antigen test is negative. He has no comorbidities, but his markers are raised. Does he need CT chest? Answer here is yes, because please remember, all patients with COVID may not be RT-PCR positive. If the sample is not taken properly or the testing is not done properly, or more commonly, if the viral load is less, or if it is done at the early or a late stage after the day 10, COVID RT-PCR can be negative. A negative RT-PCR in the presence of typical symptoms, in the presence of typical X-ray and CT findings. So that is a RT-PCR negative COVID or reliable. Here in our state, our state's task force has labeled it as COVID-like illness. So if you do a CT, it will show the parenchymal lesions, helps to determine the cause for lung infiltrates. So we call it as RT-PCR negative COVID, which is a distinct entity. Maybe in up to 20 or 30% of the patients we may come across this. So RSNA says chest imaging is indicated in patients with moderate to severe respiratory symptoms and a pretest probability of COVID when RT-PCR results are negative, and in any patient where RT-PCR test is not performed or not readily available, because some places RT-PCR test may not be available sometimes. So in such case, or where the RT-PCR takes time, in presence of typical symptoms and a typical radiology features, we are justified to treat the case as COVID. So this was the X-ray in that patient. You can see the classical peripheral lesions. So extensive, both the upper, mid, and lower zones are involved in this patient. So this was a RT-PCR negative case. So CT is typical of COVID pneumonia. Repeat in such cases, definitely a repeat RT-PCR is required. So we repeated RT-PCR in this patient after 2 days, but it was negative. So he was treated as COVID and he recovered. So it's a RT-PCR negative COVID, wherein we need to identify these cases and treat them aggressively so that they will improve. Because failure to identify these cases will increase the morbidity and mortality. Any patient, you all will agree, who has got a COVID pneumonia needs to be identified and treated early. So we had a 55-year-old male patient diagnosed COVID 14 days after the initial onset of symptoms. He had a severe dry cough since 1 week, admitted with a facial swelling. He has extensive surgical emphysema on that patient, but the chest X-ray, no pneumothorax. Could you do a CT? I think you all must have seen. Usually after 2 weeks, we have seen that the COVID lung in some of these patients is very fragile. The alveoli gives way to cause interstitial emphysema, wherein they go into the mediastinum to form the mediastinal emphysema, and then through the neck it comes to form the surgical emphysema. That is what we have seen in some of our patients. We had in these last 3 months, we have seen at least 5 patients with the surgical emphysema. And in such patients, they don't develop the classical pneumothorax, because in pneumothorax usually what happens, a peripheral bleb or bulla or a cavity ruptures into the pleural cavity, but we have seen in these patients with COVID, it is the interstitial emphysema, and from there it goes in, which is not common in adults. But in COVID, we have seen few cases. So to know whether there is a pneumothorax, because in these patients, if there is a pneumothorax, we have to put an intercostal tube in. If it is only a surgical emphysema, there is no pneumothorax, drain is not required. So, and doing a CT will give us some idea regarding the cause for surgical emphysema and the underlying lung. So this was the X-ray in this patient. You can see the surgical emphysema, which is bilateral in the neck. You can see the COVID pneumonia, the surgical emphysema in the neck. You can see the mediastinal emphysema. So CT is required if complications are suspected during the course of disease, like a pneumothorax or a surgical emphysema. Definitely, yes, you need to do a CT. COVID lung, as I told you, we have seen some of these patients, it is quite friable, leading to a interstitial emphysema, pneumomediastinum, and then a surgical emphysema. And a good number of these patients do not have pneumothorax. Whatever surgical emphysema we have seen, It is on patients who are on supplemental oxygen. They were not on high NIV or ventilator. If the patient is on NIV or ventilator, yes, I agree, they develop pneumothorax, chance of pneumothorax is more. But when they are on simple rebreathing, high concentration mask, a friable lung or a friable alveoli leads to a surgical injury. So we have seen an increased incidence of interstitial emphysema, pneumomediastinum, and surgical emphysema, especially after 2 weeks. This may or may not be associated with pneumothorax. This is our personal observation. So learning point 7, CT is required whenever you encounter complications or additional unexplained symptoms or X-ray lesions. Well, we had another 62-year-old man. He had a mitral valve replacement 3 years back. Symptoms suggestive of COVID. 3 days after initial onset of symptoms, he has come with cough and breathlessness for 1 day. Room air saturation 91%. X-ray appears markers marginally raised. Cardiac evaluation normal. No cardiac cause for his dyspnea. Would you do a CT in them? Yes. High risk cases, if they come, some of these high risk cases can come early with early pneumonia, because the majority usually the respiratory symptoms starts after the 5th day. But some of these patients we have seen they come early. So in these patients, wherever a patient with a high risk case comes with symptoms, it is important to diagnose COVID pneumonia in them early. So this was the X-ray, this was the CT. So you can see few peripheral opacities. In the lower lobe it is more predominant. You can see few patchy peripheral opacities more evident in the lower lobe, which is suggestive of COVID. So CT in high risk cases is essential to quantify the extent of lung involvement. So early aggressive treatment is essential. So any patient who is high risk to develop into progress into pneumonia, aggressive treatment is essential. Hospitalization, aggressive treatment is essential. So he received early remdesivir, anticoagulant, and then we started steroids also. He made an uneventful recovery. So high risk cases, if they are symptomatic, do early CT. Please remember, if the patient is not having any respiratory symptoms, saturation is normal, doing a CT before 5th day may not be a good idea, because majority of the patients will develop a lung lesion after the 5th day. So you may do a chest CT to identify a COVID pneumonia before the 5th day if the patient has got respiratory symptoms, if the patient has got hypoxia. In the absence of hypoxia, in the absence of respiratory symptoms, you may not do a CT before 5th day. That is our opinion. So CT may be useful in high risk cases for early diagnosis, and it will lead to early treatment. So researchers in the Western countries especially have seen that CT lesions may be picked up after the 3rd day of initial symptoms. Chest CT scan has been suggested to have potential value as a rapid triaging tool in patients with moderate to severe respiratory symptoms in a resource constrained environment where COVID-19 is highly prevalent. So you have a lot of workload with COVID patients. As I told you earlier, sometimes the RT-PCR tests are not readily available, or the test takes time. You have a set of patients who are high risk, where you need to identify whether the patient has got a COVID pneumonia or not. In such high risk cases, where there are a lot of comorbidities like cardiac disease or renal disease, which can mimic a COVID involvement of the lung, yes, we are justified in doing a CT for triaging these patients, because with the reasonable certainty we can say whether it is a COVID or non-COVID. But we should remember a chest image, especially a CT, should be interpreted with a background history, because some premorbid or comorbid conditions can mimic a COVID pneumonia in the CT. So for triaging of rapid cases, CT may be useful. When the rapid antigen test is negative and RT-PCR test report takes time, CT can be used in seriously ill patients to decide whether it is COVID or non-COVID. This is not our statement. This is RSNA statement. consensus agreement by Radiological Society of North America. So also in cases where patient requires emergency surgery, symptoms are equivocal. We are not able to decide whether there is a COVID lung involvement or not. Chest CT can be done for risk stratification. To determine the duration of disease when the history is not clear, especially I think in most of the places you must have observed some elderly patients, they don't remember whether they had any symptoms, because most of the patients what we have observed, the young come with initial symptoms like fever, headache. Those initial first to fifth day symptoms are very prominent in the young, but majority become asymptomatic after the fifth day. Whereas our observation is in patients who develop COVID pneumonia, especially, their 1 to 5th day symptoms are very mild. Some of them may say, I had fever, little fever for a day, myalgia and other symptoms, which they tend to ignore. And they come after the 5th day with respiratory symptoms. Or sometimes we have seen some elderly patients, especially after the age of 60, 70 or 80s with a lot of comorbidities. They don't remember whether they had any symptom or not. They just come with pneumonia. So in them, if you do a CT, X-ray CT can give us some idea of the disease. I'll come to it later. I will show you the classical CTs where you can identify the probable probable duration of the disease. Because the duration of disease is very important for management. We'll come to it later when we discuss regarding remdesivir. Some elderly patients, second infections with the COVID, CT is useful to identify the duration of lung involvement and to identify the complications and sequelae. In patients who develop surgical emphysema, the X-ray may not show the pneumothorax. So CT is essential. In case of pneumothorax, intercostal tube is mandatory. If only surgical emphysema, intercostal tube has got no. We have observed increased incidence of pneumothorax, especially after day 14, more so in patients who are dependent on oxygen and in patients who have got an extensive lung involvement. So CT is of some use, especially in patients who are dependent on oxygen even after 2 weeks, where it will show the extent of lung involvement and it will give some idea regarding the long-term prognosis of these patients. A CT may be repeated if there is an unexplained worsening of hypoxia to identify whether the patient has got any small pneumothorax or embolism or other cause. Whether CT is useful for excluding COVID pneumonia. Yes, some elderly patients with heart disease, chronic renal disease, liver disease may come with history of fever and cough, where RT-PCR is negative. So they may need a CT, where the chest X-ray is not very typical, and you can't find out any other obvious causes for the symptoms. So when the symptoms is equivocal, you can't determine whether it is a pre-existing disease with a little infection or is it a COVID pneumonia in these patients. So in elderly with a lot of comorbidities, where it is very difficult to determine clinically and there is a high index of suspicion, CT may be of value in these cases. Well, in high-risk cases, to diagnose pneumonia early, we can do CT scan. But doing a CT, as I told you earlier, before the 5th day in the absence of symptoms with a normal saturation may not be a good idea. If at all in such cases want to do a CT, it may be after the 5th day. So triaging of suspect cases, diagnosis of RT-PCR negative cases, identify the complications and sequelae, excluding COVID pneumonia. But then we should remember when CT scan is not required, because we see a lot of patients coming with the CT even for subtle symptoms. But we should remember unnecessary exposure to radiation should be avoided, especially in a resource limited setting like ours. We should use our resources judiciously. So asymptomatic low risk group, where they don't have any respiratory symptoms or they come under the mild cases, CT scan is not required. And most important, CT scan need not be repeated if the patient is improving and no complications are suspected. Because we have seen patients coming to us after COVID with 2, 3, 4 CT scans being repeated every second or third day to see whether the pneumonia is improving or reducing. We should apply the general rule of treating pneumonias, because once a lung infiltrate occurs, it takes some time to resolve. COVID lung is not an exception. It takes time. So when a patient has got COVID pneumonia, if he is improving clinically, the oxygen requirement comes down, then, and you are not suspecting any additional complications, there is no need for repeating the CT. So unnecessary CT scans should be avoided. A repeat CT is required only if the patient is deteriorating, you are suspecting some complications, additional complications like pneumothorax or embolism or something, or even after 2 or 3 weeks, the patient is still dependent on oxygen, then you want to see what is the extent of lung involvement, where you can get some idea whether this patient, how long this patient will take time to improve. Otherwise, in a straightforward case where the patient is improving clinically, he is off oxygen, there is no need for repeating a CT. I think you all will agree with me. So no rule for serial CT scan if patient is improving clinically and no complications are suspected clinically. A follow-up X-ray is more than sufficient. So what are the typical CT findings in COVID? Just a few sentences. So early stage, 1 to 4 days, you get ground glass opacities with a minimal crazy pain pattern. Progressive stage is usually after the 5th day of onset of COVID pneumonia. This is not after the onset of the early stage. This is after the onset of COVID pneumonia. That means usually after the 5th day of the symptoms. So early 1 to 4 days is a ground glass opacity. Sometimes early crazy pain. Progressive stage is usually the 5th to 8th day. Extension ground glass opacities, increasing crazy pain pattern. Peak stage is 9 to 14 days, which is the stage of consolidation, and after 14 days is a stage of resorption. So gradual resolution, wherein you may get bands, fibrosis, and in the late stages you may get traction bronchitis. I'll show you some stages. So this is the early stage where you get the classical lower zone peripheral ground glass opacities. So ground glass opacity is the most common and the first finding in COVID-19 infection, pneumonia. Usually they are multifocal, bilateral, peripheral, lower lobe predominant. Early phase of the disease, the GGO is may present as a unifocal lesion, most commonly on the inferior lobe of the right lung. So you can see the crazy pain pattern here. So crazy pain pattern is the thickened interlobular and intralobular lines in combination with the ground glass pattern seen in a somewhat later stage, as I told you earlier, and the late stage, that is after 7 to 14 days you get consolidation and ARDS pain. So this is what you get. You can see the basal consolidation. Here you can see the thickened lines also. So this means usually it is after the 7th day, usually a part of resolution as well as the consolidation stage. You can see organizing pneumonia pattern here. A delayed case where you can see the traction bronchitis, honeycombing. So this is a sick flare. So you can see the classical crazy paving, the bronchiectatic changes, the honeycombing, which are all delayed changes in these patients. So what are the limitations of chest CT? It's not available freely everywhere, and you require expertise for interpretation, cost, and radiation. So especially when we repeat a CT, we should not repeat it unless otherwise there is a clear-cut indication. And most often we need to do a high-resolution CT scan. Only in specific cases we need a contrast. When we suspect some underlying embolism, more commonly, that is the indication for contrast. And the disadvantage is not portable. It may not be feasible to repeat also because of high radiation risk. So patients who are seriously ill, who are oxygen dependent, especially those who are in the ICU on ventilator or other things, we may not be able to do a CT. Please remember, CT is not the standard for diagnosis of COVID, but its findings help suggest the diagnosis in the appropriate setting. So whenever you interpret a CT, you should have the background information. Remember, you are just seeing the structural changes that are occurring in the lungs. The CT doesn't tell you the etiology, but you can, in the background history, at the most you can say probable differential diagnosis. So when you interpret the CT, the history is very important. CT has always to be interpreted with the background history. If the symptoms are typical and the CT is typical, then yes. Even if the CT is normal, that doesn't exclude a COVID. It excludes a COVID pneumonia, but remember, COVID always starts as a upper respiratory disease. So virus can still be there in the upper respiratory tract. A normal CT in the presence of symptoms indicates that there is no COVID pneumonia. So correlate the CT findings with the epidemiology, the history, clinical presentation, and RT-PCR test results. Many other diseases can mimic COVID in the CT, and also vice versa. COVID can mimic because we can get atypical radiological features also in COVID. Typical or indeterminate features of COVID pneumonia may be incidentally detected when CT is performed for other reasons. Suppose we do a CT for some abdominal disease. The base of the lung is also seen, and you happen to see some features which is typical of COVID. Then we need to alert the treating physician. So in these cases, the interpreting radiologist should discuss the possibility of COVID with the referring physician in a timely manner. So you do a CT for some other reason, happen to see the lesions which can be of COVID, that needs to be interpreted and clinical correlations. Chest CT should not be used as an independent diagnostic tool to exclude or confirm COVID-19. As I told you earlier, you can't see the virus with the CT. Confirmation comes from RT-PCR. That is the gold standard at present. Chest CT in stroke patients or MI may be indicated if you are suspecting COVID as the cause. So some of the patients may come with sequelae. So you suspect a stroke patient or a MI patient, maybe that with the background history, it could be probably a sequelae to COVID. In such patients, you may ask for a chest CT to see whether there is any lung. The possibility of COVID-19 related cardiac injury should be suspected when pericardial effusion is seen on the chest CT images. So there is an important point to remember, because as respiratory physicians, most often we concentrate on lungs, but we should look at the other areas also. So especially from the Western countries, they are reported pericardial effusion is a sign of probable cardiac injury, because COVID can lead to myocarditis, especially in the younger age group. A negative chest CT examination does not exclude COVID, but a normal chest CT excludes COVID pneumonia. But as I told you earlier, patient may still have a COVID infection, which is involving probably the upper respiratory tract. The lung is not involved probably. The proportion of false positive chest CT examination results is substantial, and due to overlapping of imaging features with numerous other diseases, including other viral images. So don't be under the impression that whatever looks like a ground glass opacity, or a crazy pairing, or organizing pneumonia, or a consolidation picture, which is bilateral peripheral, is always COVID. Because aspiration pneumonias, other viral pneumonias, especially H1N1, they also will have the same features. So always it is very important to interpret the chest CT with the background history. So a positive predictive value is low in low prevalence regions. When the prevalence of COVID is less, the positive predictive value is only up to 30%. The negative predictive value is high. So you suspect COVID pneumonia, you do a CT, and you find the CT is normal, then probably the possibility of COVID pneumonia is very low. The negative predictive value is high. A pooled sensitivity and specificity of chest CT was 94 to 96% for identifying COVID pneumonia, and only 37% for diagnosis. So that is regarding the chest CT and COVID. We'll go on to remdesivir in what is the role of this drug in the current pandemic. Remdesivir is a prodrug which has a virus replication. It inhibits the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase of this virus. It was used in Ebola, SARS, and MERS. And we should remember that the SARS-CoV-2 shares 80% of its RNA sequence with other coronaviruses. That is how this remdesivir was evaluated for COVID. So the dosage is once daily, a loading dose of initial dose of 200 on day 1, followed by a maintenance dose of 100 milligram infusion from day 2 to 5. In severe cases, it can be given up to 10 days. So we will share few of our experience and what is our strategy with this drug, and a few words from the literature which supports us. We had a 25-year-old male, symptoms suggestive, confirmed, but no comorbidity. Day 8 after his initial symptoms, he has got no respiratory symptoms. His room air saturation is normal. X-ray and markers are normal. Does he require remdesivir? Well, straightforward, mild case, no comorbidities. We are seeing him on day 8. He is stable otherwise. So in mild asymptomatic mild cases without any comorbidities, day 8 of symptoms, remdesivir is not essential in this patient. We can observe it. Well, we had a 65-year-old male, symptoms are suggestive of COVID. It is confirmed by RT-PCR. He has got diabetes, hypertension, ischemic heart disease, obesity, and OSA. What more you want? Day 5 of symptoms, we are seeing him. He has got cough and breathlessness since 1 day. His room air saturation is low, 87%. Will you give it remdesivir? Yes, because he has come with symptoms. He has got a lot of comorbidities. So our strategy is whenever we encounter a patient with COVID, we stratify the risk. In all high-risk cases, elderly, comorbidities, those with hypoxia, we start upfront. So moderate disease, high-risk group, early antiviral is essential. Please remember, day 1 to day 5 is the active viral replication stage. That would be the best time when we should use antivirals. After the 5th day, the host viral interaction takes place. And after the 10th day, whatever happens is the second day. So the best time to give antivirals is the initial 10 days, out of which we feel the initial 7 days are very crucial. So any patient who comes under the high risk group, even if the disease is mild, I think we should give remdesivir upfront. Because we have seen more than 350 patients in this last 3 months. We have followed them up personally. This is a safe drug where the toxicity is very minimal, and you all will agree. When do you want to treat a patient with COVID? Before he starts developing problems. I hope you all will agree. Observing a high risk patient to develop complications and then start treating in COVID as well. No role. It's a futile exercise we do. So if the patient falls into high risk group, we should start an aggressive treatment early. What is an aggressive treatment? According to us, the most important would be early antiviral, judicious use of steroids, and anticoagulants as and when indicated. I think these three are the most important drugs which have brought down the morbidity and mortality of COVID in our country. What precautions in this patient? Yes, liver function tests and renal function tests needs to be monitored before and after starting treatment. Well, we had a 85-year-old man, severe malaise, history of fever 2 days back, confirmed case, diabetes with poor glycemic control. I think you all will agree that elderly, some of them, the only symptom may be severe malaise. This is not a good symptom. They may not complain of any breathlessness. They may not complain of any cough or other symptoms. A severe malaise, that is due to happy hypoxia. So in these patients, the morbidity and mortality is very high. So he has got a poor functional status, no other comorbidities, no respiratory symptoms. Chest X-ray and markers is normal. Remdesivir? Yes, definitely, because he is elderly, high risk group. He has come with the severe malaise, which we have found that it is one of the bad prognostic features, especially in the elderly. So start early treatment so that you reduce the viral load, so that you reduce the development of complications. Because we have found that when the patient develops complications, it is extremely difficult to treat. So if at all we want to treat COVID, we should treat them early and aggressively so that they don't progress to develop complications. 95-year-old female, history of fever 12 days back, confirmed by RT-PCR. She has got diabetes and hypertension, no other comorbidities. She has cough, malaise, but no other symptoms. Saturation is almost normal for her age. Chest X-ray is normal. Markers marginally raised. Remdesivir in this patient. Plus remember, she is elderly. She has got mild symptoms. Saturation is normal, and more importantly, we are seeing her on day 12 with almost normal markers. Do you want to give remdesivir? My answer would be no, because already 12 days are over. She has come late. We have seen her late in hospital. Markers are normal. After 12 days, I think you all will agree with me that the chance of further progression is less. In this lady, if the markers were high, or if she had any features of pneumonia, or anything which makes her a moderate case, definitely would have started. But if you look at the features, it is only mild symptoms. But remember, a cough in COVID is not always a sign of lung involvement. Some of these patients, it may be due to just a post-viral irritation or other causes for a chronic cough. So we can observe this patient. 46-year-old male, symptoms suggestive, day 7 after the initial onset of symptoms, RT-PCR negative, HRCT, Corad's fine, markers are raised, saturation is low, he has got hypoxia, saturation 92% with high concentration. Would you use remdesivir? Yes, moderate disease is RT-PCR negative, but a CD is suggestive. So it is COVID, there is no doubt. So moderate disease, day 7 of symptoms, RT-PCR negative COVID. So we will start treating it. So what is our experience? We had few patients like this. A 62-year-old male, day 2 of initial symptoms, we saw him. He had no cough or breathlessness or anything. Mild disease when he got admitted to the hospital. This was on the initial days when remdesivir was not readily available. So he had history of hypertension. PTCA was done 3 years back. Present cardiac evaluation is normal. Markers are not raised. So day 2 of initial symptoms, except for a mild hypertension, which is well under control, previous history of PTCA, rest everything is fine. So we decided to observe. He was stable till day 5. Markers marginal raise, but then he started cough on day 6. Same day we started with steroid anticoagulant. He worsened on day 7, developed hypoxia, shifted from the ward to the ICU. We started him on remdesivir on day 7. Progressive deterioration, high concentration mask, HFNC, non-invasive ventilation, and then mechanical ventilation. CT showed bronchopneumonia. He received everything, plasma therapy, tocilizumab, all in vain. That was the initial days when the pandemic started in our place. So we still ponder whether a early initiation of remdesivir could have saved him, because we saw him on day 2. He was admitted in the ward. So after this initial case, we used to our strategy was to stratify the risk. Any person who falls under the high risk category of hypertension, diabetes, comorbidities, or age more than 60, we have started remdesivir in all these patients. More than 200 patients we had given remdesivir, and from the out of this group who have been admitted from in the ward in a stable condition, only 2 of them afterwards have been shifted to the ICU with deterioration. Rest all improved in the ward. We never had any problems. So I think our experience with the remdesivir seems to be really good. So 49-year-old male, diabetes, moderate disease, day 6 of initial symptoms, started remdesivir, steroid and anticoagulant. He was on oxygen admission. Oxygen tapered and stopped, made uneventful recovery. So this is our strategy which has been there afterwards. His mother was admitted on the same day, 75-year-old, diabetes, hypertension under control, day 3 of upper respiratory symptoms, but she had a generalized weakness, no fever, cough, or breathlessness on admission. Markers were normal, saturation 97% on room air. So she fits into a mild disease, except that she is high risk group, elderly female, hypertension, and diabetes. So chest CT, minimal, ground glass opacities in both the lower lobes. So to stratify the risk, we did a CT, even though it was only third day, we did a CT for this patient, showed a minimal ground glass opacities in this patient. So we started her on remdesivir, anticoagulants, and steroids, but she developed cough and breathlessness on day 6, required oxygen for 4 days, but she made an uneventful recovery. We never had to shift her to the ICU. In the ward only with the supplemental oxygen, she made a uneventful recovery. This is not a single case. We had many cases like this, where we could identify the COVID pneumonia early with the help of symptoms, or rather CT, and then started with the early aggressive treatment, so that we believe that an early aggressive treatment has helped these patients to have a uneventful recovery. So total we had 30 patients so far. 168 patients received remdesivir. Only 1 patient had a raised liver enzymes, where we had to stop the drug on day 2. 1 patient had developed a rigor and chills, and 1 patient had renal failure. So only out of these 168 patients who received remdesivir, we had to stop remdesivir only in 3 patients. Rest all tolerated well. We had given in about 12 patients who had a chronic renal disease on dialysis. They have tolerated the medication well, and almost all has recovered as well. So our ICU admission was 59, and you all know the death rate in the ICU is very high. But only 6 patients were shifted from the ward to ICU. So after admission, the deterioration was very less. So we believe an early aggressive treatment, especially patients who come with a moderate disease or a high risk cases, even though the disease appears to be mild, probably that has helped our patients not to progress. And out of these 6 patients who are shifted from ICU ward to the ICU, only 2 had succumbed. So our death rate from the ward, which is very less. So we believe the aggressive treatment strategy definitely brings down the mortality rate in these hospitalized patients. So coming to the literature review, what are the indications for remdesivir? All high-risk cases, irrespective of the severity, whether it is mild, moderate, or severe. If you think the patient is a high-risk case, just start remdesivir upfront. Now the drug is available readily, and we feel it is a safe drug. The adverse reactions are very minimal, provided we monitor them properly. Mild cases with the comorbidities, if we see them before death in day 10, all moderate and severe cases, all confirmed pre-operative cases to reduce the viral load. Yes, I think this will be the experience for many, in the many centers also, I believe. Patients with especially road traffic accidents, they come, they and we do a pre-operative test. The RT-PCR turns out to be positive. The patient doesn't have much symptoms, but then please remember, if you have to give a general anesthesia, the post-operative respiratory complication risk is always there. So we believe, even if the pre-operative cases wherein the surgery has to be done for some other emergency surgery has to be done for some other reasons, we believe a remdesivir in such cases is essential to reduce, which will reduce the viral load and it will reduce the post-operative complications, because it is very difficult to identify which patient will develop a problem later on. So what are the cases where you can observe mild cases without any comorbidities, mild cases with comorbidities seen after day 10 of symptoms, like the old lady where we had seen her on day 12 but faced into mild disease after day 12, where the markers and other things are not raised. Yes, we are justified in watching, but if we see them early, yes, we need to treat them early. So when to start remdesivir, our answer would be as early as possible. Don't wait for the complications to develop, because observation has got no role in high risk cases. And as I told you earlier, it may not be of much use after day 10. So what is a concern about this drug? The cost, availability, adverse reactions, and it has to be given IV. So requires admission and observation. But then compared to the morbidity and mortality, I think it's a wonder drug. Initial days, the availability was an issue, but I think now it is freely available in almost all the places. And of course, we are still to determine what is the optimal dosage for this drug, what should be the optimal duration, what is the optimal time to start, and who will benefit for sure. That subgroup we are yet to find out. So as of now, our strategy is to give remdesivir in high risk cases and moderate to severe cases. So one word of caution: it may interact with the medications which induce cytochrome P50 inducers or inhibitors. So what should be our strategy when we see a COVID patient? Stratify the risk on arrival, identify the comorbidities, whether he falls into a high risk or a low risk group, and decide what is the duration of the illness. That is very important, because it follows a definite algorithm: 1 to 5 days upper respiratory symptoms. After the 5th to 14th day, usually the respiratory symptoms, especially the low respiratory symptoms, the COVID pneumonia predominates, and that causes the morbidity and mortality in the majority. And after 14 days, the thromboembolic events, the pulmonary thromboembolism, or the cardiac and the stroke risks are high. So identify the severity of the disease and the comorbidities. So early, aggressive, and appropriate treatment should be our strategy. Oxygen, steroid, anticoagulants, and remdesivir. I feel these are the 4 wonder drugs which has helped to reduce the morbidity and mortality. and a judicious, timely use of CT scan whenever indicated. And we should remember the complications, mortality, and morbidity is high in patients who have got hypoxia on admission. Any viral disease, viral pneumonia for that matter, even with our experience with the HNN, patients who are hypoxic on admission, the morbidity and mortality is very high. So we believe any person who develops any sort of lower respiratory symptoms or breathlessness or cough after the 5th day, between the 5th to 14th day, should be viewed with suspicion, and a saturation monitoring is essential. So monitoring of saturation and any sort of respiratory symptoms after the 5th day, between the 5th to 14th day rather, needs to be evaluated and treated aggressively. So what does the clinical data says? The adaptive COVID treatment trial phase 3 remdesivir was associated with a 62% reduction in the risk of mortality compared to standard care. The compassionate data compassionate use of remdesivir. What was the data there? It reduced the recovery time. Solidarity trial, remdesivir shortened the recovery time. So this is the latest NEJM update. Remdesivir was superior to placebo in shortening the time to recovery in adults who are hospitalized with COVID-19 and had evidence of lower respiratory tract infection. So my sincere thanks to our team, COVID team, Dr. Nagaraj Shetty, the Professor of Medicine, Dr. Nitish Bhandari, Associate Professor, and Dr. Harsha DS, who is Associate Professor of Respiratory Medicine, and all our postgraduate students who has helped us to collect all these images. These are some of the references for the learning points, especially the Fishner Society statement and the RSNA, the BMJ updated report on remdesivir, and a review on remdesivir. These are the 4 basic references. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Vishnu, for that excellent presentation on the role of HRCT and remdesivir in current COVID scenario, and giving us or rather sharing your hospital data as well in the present pandemic. We are ready with the question and answer sessions. I'll be asking you basically a few questions to just to start the ball rolling, and maybe then we'll take the questions from the audience. Your presentation was a case-based scenario, so let me start with some case-based questions. In a setting where CT is abnormal but patient is not symptomatic, or CT is normal and patient is symptomatic, how would you proceed?
Yes, if patient is symptom free, then probably we need to look into the disease pattern as such. It may be something which is mimicking COVID, or maybe already he is recovering from COVID, or maybe it is a mild disease. Because CT can show the severity, but during recovery, CT can still lot of shadows, but patient may be fine. Well, if a patient is symptomatic and CT is normal, that means probably it is something else. Because in a patient who has got a COVID pneumonia, the CT will show the changes.
Yeah. In the same context, how often other diseases coexist with COVID?
Definitely, patients who have got a underlying cardiac disease, renal disease, fluid overload, or pre-existing lung diseases, all these can coexist. And as we all know, patients who have got a cardiac and renal illnesses are more at risk to develop the complications as well. So we need to see the patient as a whole. And even if a patient who has got a COVID pneumonia, the cause of breathlessness may be partly due to the other coexistent diseases, which we should not forget. And if you look at the morbidity and mortality will be directly proportional to the comorbidities. So we should not forget to record the severity of the comorbidities and treat the comorbidities appropriately. Aggressive treatment of the COVID as well as a proper management of the comorbidities is essential for a good outcome.
A role of CT to detect COVID fibrosis, or extension to the same question, would you do a CT if somebody is symptomatic, let's say beyond 14 days?
Yes, because what we have seen is majority of the patients start healing after the 10th day. And what we have seen is most of them are off oxygen by 14 days. So if a patient is persistently hypoxic beyond day 14 and we couldn't and we can't identify any other cause for hypoxia like a cardiac comorbidity or so, we can repeat a CT. That will help us to know the extent of the lung disease and the long-term sequelae as well. Because the permanent changes like fibrosis start taking place after day 14. So that will help us to identify these patients who may require long-term oxygen and other management strategies.
Yeah. Next question on remdesivir. Basically, we have favipiravir also as an antiviral,
Yes.
although it's not approved as an approved agent by US FDA, whereas remdesivir is recently approved. Still, do we need to take a consent before starting remdesivir? That's one question. And in mild to moderate cases, can we do away without using remdesivir? Maybe an OPD setting or somebody who is mild to moderate disease, can we just use favipiravir in such cases?
Yeah, definitely. Remdesivir, the side effect profile we still do not know, and it is a compassionate use drug in Western countries. That is the reason why emergency approval has been given. So we still need to take a informed consent regarding the remdesivir whenever we administer. One of the drawbacks for remdesivir is a patient needs to be hospitalized. It has to be given as infusion. So patients who have got a mild or moderate disease who are being treated on an OPD basis can be given oral medication, which is convenient.
Yeah, there's a question from Dr. Geeta Tiwari from Nagpur. Is HRCT a cost-effective investigation? That's the question. Is it cost-effective?
Yeah, as we have discussed, HRCT is indicated only few select patients. Every patient doesn't require a CT. So only, as we have discussed earlier, only few select patients require CT. We should remember.
Yeah. Next question
We should remember
is on remdesivir. Yeah, complete please. Yeah.
We should remember CT shows the structural changes that are occurring in the lungs. That doesn't tell you the etiology of the lesion. So CT interpretation regarding COVID or long COVID should come with a background history.
Okay. Next question is on remdesivir. There are two questions. One is by Dr. Pradipta Gajendra Mahapatra from Dakshin Narikada. After solidarity trial, the role of remdesivir is questionable. And similar question is from Jaipur, asked by Dr. Ashok Kasliwal. There's a lot of confusion between created by ICMR and CDC about the role of remdesivir. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Vishnu, yeah.
Yeah, remdesivir, there are still a lot of things to be known about the drug. What should be the ideal dosage? What should be the duration? What are the side effect profile? And as I discussed earlier, which are the group of patients who are likely to be benefited with this drug? Definitely. So the guidelines keep on changing. Whatever I have discussed is our experience in our hospital in the last 3 months, and also the data from the various trials.
Yeah. Next question is by Dr. Ashok from Idratpur. How soon we should start remdesivir in patients? Let's say even in a mild case, since I think some of your case scenarios showed that as well. So how soon to start? Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
I think this is one important question. Mild cases, if somebody is home isolated or can be treated at OPD level, we would always choose an oral drug over an IV drug. So, moderate to severe cases requiring hospitalization, definitely would recommend IV injectable remdesivir in such cases. Uh, we are just waiting for Professor Vishnu to
Yeah, yeah.
come back
I'm here.
again. Yeah, are you there? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Next question is by Dr. K. Bansal. Should we recommend remdesivir routinely in all patients, or is there any criteria to select patients?
Yeah, as I've discussed earlier, patients who have got a mild disease without any comorbidities, remdesivir is not required. Patients who have got comorbidities, definitely yes. If you see them before,
I think we lost him once again. I'll take up the next question. Hopefully, he joins
yeah,
again. Yeah, are you there? Okay.
yeah. There is some problem with the connectivity. I'm very sorry. It is
Yeah,
a
no
little
problem, no problem.
lightning and raining here in Mangalore.
Okay, we can hear you. Just put off
Yeah,
your
so
video. That's fine. We can
yeah,
hear you well. Yeah, we wanted to complete that question.
yeah. Anyone who has got a mild disease, no comorbidities, remdesivir is not required. Anyone who has got a lot of comorbidities or moderate or severe disease, definitely remdesivir is indicated. If you see a patient after 10 days, then remdesivir may not be useful. But then, if such a patient happens to be
Oh, yeah, I think there is an issue with some connectivity issues again.
yeah,
Are you
can you
there?
hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So, if such a patient, yeah, if a patient is seen after day 10, we may not we may not use the remdesivir. But those who are seen early, it is always better to start remdesivir early, especially if they are moderate or severe cases or patients with comorbidities, even if the disease is mild, if they are hospitalized.
Yeah. Sometimes we see patients coming with dozens of CTs for follow-up. This is a question by Dr. Kishan Kumar Gupta from Baran. So, how frequently we should be ordering a CT during admission and during follow-up? I think this was covered in his talk that CT to be done rationally only when it is really indicated,
How
especially
often?
if there are complications. Dr.
Yeah,
Vishnu, you got my question?
yeah. How often CT to be repeated?
Correct. Please go ahead.
If the patient is responding to the treatment, makes an uneventful recovery, repeat CT is not indicated. As we have discussed earlier, during the course of the disease, if there are complications, wherein we suspect there could be a pulmonary embolism or other things, patient develops a surgical emphysema, wherein the wherein you need to see whether there is a pneumothorax or only a surgical emphysema, or other comorbid conditions which can worsen the disease, a CT may be indicated. Otherwise, if a patient is improving clinically, a repeat CT is not required. Suppose a patient is persistently hypoxic, goes in for a fibrosis, a follow-up CT may be required depending upon the clinical condition. But for a patient who is responding well, no complications, a repeat CT is of no role.
Yeah. Next question is on the duration of remdesivir. This is Dr. Tejas Gude from Mumbai. What is your take on using remdesivir for 10 days? We know some people use it for 5 days. So, what's your take?
What we use in our hospital is usually 5 days, but if the patient is on high flow oxygen, beyond we use it up to 10 days. That is our take. And literature also says that remdesivir can be used up to 10 days.
Yeah. Uh, Next question, I think about CORAD and severity. Could you just explain for our audience the CORAD scoring system and as
Yeah,
well as the
scoring
severity
system basically indicates the probability of COVID in the city. So CORAD 1 and 2, the probability is very low, less likely to be COVID. CORAD 3, probably. CORAD 4 and 5, it is typical of COVID. And CORAD 6 is RT-PCR positive. So 1 and 2 less likely, 3 likely to be, and 4 and 5 more, it is typical, and 6, CORAD 6 is RT-PCR positive, so there is no doubt that disease is confirmed. Then CT severity index, there are various scoring methods, but the usual scoring is scoring out of 25. Basically, we have 3 lobes on the right and 2 lobes on the left. So each lobe you make a scoring and then add on to it. So out of 25, what is the scoring? Researchers have found that the scoring usually correlates with the severity of the disease. So if the score is more than 15 or 18, that usually corresponds to a severe disease. Usually such patients are hypoxic, they might require ICU admissions. But then it may not be so after the 10th day. That is what we feel. In the early course of the disease, especially between day 5 to day 10, we agree the severity scoring usually indicates the severity of the disease. But beyond the 10th day, even if the scoring is more than 18, sometimes patients might improve. But the majority of these patients who have got a severe scoring after the 10th day, usually they progress in for a consolidation or ARDS type of picture. So usually in majority of the patients, the severity of scoring is useful to, it will help to identify the severity of COVID pneumonia.
Yeah. Next question is by Dr. Jitendra Kumar Shah from Bayard. How much radiation in CT chest? And extension to the same question is, would you recommend low dose CT in most of the cases, and whether low dose CT can be done for follow-up cases as well?
Yeah, very valid question. Definitely yes. Whenever we go for a follow-up CT, a low dose CT is always better than the conventional CT. That is the reason, because of the exposure to radiation, a repeat CT is not advisable unless otherwise there is a definite indication.
Definitely, we are definitely concerned about the radiation dose, so low dose CT is the answer. Next question is by Dr. Trideep Chatterjee. He wants to know, in case even let's say 10th or 14th day, patient is having hypoxia and extensive lung involvement with raised markers, would you give remdesivir as a viral phase? Maybe over theoretically. So what is your take on this? So beyond 10 days, would you recommend remdesivir, or would you opt for other line of treatment, steroids and other sort of treatment?
Yes, if the patient has not received remdesivir, in such a scenario, definitely yes, because it may be of some role. Because the viral load may differ from patient to patient, especially after the 10th day, it would be ideal to do a RT-PCR test. If the RT-PCR is positive, probably I feel that makes sense to give remdesivir in such patients, provided they have not received remdesivir earlier.
Yeah. Dr. Sachin Kumar K. Khade from Pune wants to know whether there are any contraindications for your remdesivir use.
Yeah, definitely patients with a creatinine clearance less than 30 are high risk candidates, and patients with the underlying chronic liver disease also. So renal and liver impairments are relative contraindications. We need to monitor the renal and liver functions whenever we give remdesivir.
Yeah. Next question is a very interesting question from Greater Noida. Dr. Pranay Vinod has posed this important question. That is, how do we determine a high risk case? Clinically, radiologically, inflammatory markers. We have so many things to our use, but we have seen time and again that old patients with comorbidities having good recovery. On the other hand, we have seen young patients in their early 30s, 40s dying with a severe disease despite all the treatment. So can we really go by the severity, let's say from your HRCT scoring systems or clinical scoring or your inflammatory markers? So which is the best way to determine who is going to fare well and who is not going to fare well?
Yes, in viral disease, especially with regard to this virus, it is very difficult to predict. from person to person it differs. If you look at the set of complications which starts occurring after the fifth day, more than the virus, it is a host virus interaction that causes all the problems. So each individual is unique. That's why the outcome is different in different people. We also have seen a lot of patients with a lot of comorbidities not developing any problems. Young people, of course, developing complications. But then we have, in our experience in the last three months, most of the deaths have occurred in people who are more than 60. And if you look at the all India statistics also, the death rate is very low in people who less than 30 years of age without any other underlying chronic organ disease. But what we have observed in viral diseases is if they come late, hypoxia, patients who are admitted with severe hypoxia, the mortality is very high. So one thing which we always should stress upon is early detection of hypoxia in these patients. In case the saturation goes down, we should act aggressively. Such patients need to be hospitalized and treated early. So early correction of hypoxia is something which will improve the morbidity as well as the mortality.
Yeah.
I think
There
most
was
of the
one
deaths in the
question.
young people is delayed hospitalization and severe hypoxia, and maybe
Yeah.
undiagnosed comorbidities.
Yeah. There was one question. Somebody wanted to know what is happy hypoxia.
Yeah, most of the patients who develop hypoxia are symptomatic. But what happens in COVID patients is even if they are severely hypoxic, they are happy. Happy in the sense they don't develop the symptoms of hypoxia like tachypnea, breathlessness, and other features. That is known as happy hypoxia. So we still do not know what is the cause for this happy hypoxia. Hypoxia. There are various theories for that, but the problem is if a patient develops symptoms, they will come to the hospital early. A patient with happy hypoxia, neither he nor others suspect. So probably there are reports that sudden death, especially cardiovascular events like arrhythmias and other things occur, and that is the cause for sudden death in these patients.
Yeah. Is there a real drug interaction with dexamethasone and remdesivir, or whether the other question was whether we should be using methylprednisolone more often than remdesivir, which is supposed to be more safer. But is it a concern if you use dexa with remdesivir?
There are some reports like minimal drug interaction, but it is said that in the literature that it is not clinically significant.
Okay.
So both can be used.
Yeah. There was another question from Dr. Narayan Hule from Pimpri Chinswad. Can we solely depend upon HRCT for diagnosis? I think you answered it earlier, but could you please repeat it
Definitely
again?
not, because the CT shows the structural changes that are occurring in the lungs. That doesn't tell you the etiology of the lesion. So always the disease should be confirmed by RT-PCR. But as I discussed earlier, there is an entity known as RT-PCR negative COVID pneumonia, where if the symptoms are typical of COVID, if the CT is typical of COVID, RT-PCR negative, then you call it as RT-PCR negative COVID, or in our state, our guidelines is that it is COVID-like illness. So we need to treat them, because even with a proper swab test, only around 70 or 80% of the people will be positive. Rest of them may be negative. In such cases, we need to repeat the swab even with the best of the technique. It all depends on which day we have taken the swab. If it is taken too early or too late, the PCR may be negative.
Yeah. In fact, in Goa, we call it as proxy COVID, suspect or proxy.
Yeah, in different states, I think the names are different.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Again, coming to remdesivir, how early to start and up to what day you could still use it? That's the repetition, but then this is an important question. So please answer.
Yeah. If you look at the literature, all the complications are due to host virus interaction. So I would say start as early as possible in the high risk group. High risk group means patients who are having comorbidities. It is low risk. Probably we can wait and watch. If they progress, we can start. and how when till what day the literature says it may not be of much use after the 10th day. Our take is if we see the patient after the 10th day and if the patient is stable, stable, we don't give remdesivir. But after, even if we see a patient who is moderate or severe disease after the 10th day, if he has not received remdesivir, we would like to start provided the RT-PCR after the 10th day is done again and it is positive. Still,
Yeah.
literature, we need to have much literature on this. That is the
Dr.
current
Sachin
thing.
Kumar Kekpate from Pune wants to know whether there are real contraindications from remdesivir.
Yeah, some patients can develop hypersensitivity reactions to the drug. So, absolute contraindication for any drug is development of hypersensitivity reaction. One patient of ours had a rigor and chills wherein we had stopped the drug.
Yeah. I've received a lot of questions not pertaining to present the today's subject, so I've not really included them in the discussion. I think maybe some other time, some other day, if we happen to discuss about the other part of COVID, maybe these questions can be addressed. But one last important question is by Alan Thomas from Kottayam. Uh, he wants you to tell him the differentiating features of COVID from other interstitial pneumonias. Sometimes it's really difficult, and during this COVID pandemic, each and everything shadow whatever we see on CT, we take it as COVID and we report accordingly. But how do you really differentiate COVID from other interstitial pneumonias?
As I have shown you, most of the typical CT will be bilateral, bibasal, peripheral. Uh, to start with ground glassing, then the crazy pain pattern, then the consolidation, and later on the healing stage. These are the typical CT features. That is how we differentiate. And the background history is very important. Whenever we interpret a CT, a background history is very important.
Yeah. So I think we are almost coming to an end of today's session. Maybe I'll just try to summarize, and after that, Dr. Vishnu, you can give your final comments and we'll wind up. HRCT, I think it is indispensable, but we need to order it rationally. Basically, to rule in or rule out COVID, that's very, very important. RT-PCR negative cases, if you are a strong suspicion, please do get a CT done. If patient before emergency surgery waiting for RT-PCR, which takes a lot of time, I think definitely there is an indication. Whenever you suspect some complications and sequelae, definitely we need a HRCT. And in a hospital setup, in fact, we had scenarios wherein too many patients were getting admitted. So triaging these patients, you require a CT, especially when they are suspects. CT comes to the rescue. Do not really order in stable patients, low risk patients, improving patients, and that is absolutely, as Dr. Vishnu said earlier, there is no role for serial CTs. You could always go by your clinical judgment, or always may get an X-ray done, which is much cheaper, less radiation exposure. Coming to the second part, remdesivir, one has to really look for the indications, and more importantly, look for contraindications. See what is the duration of the illness. The history is very, very important, because antivirals may not have a role beyond certain days, like beyond 10 days. It's an approved drug now, mainly to be used in moderate to severe cases. We have a lot of data which has come in now from Solidity trial. We know that it helps in reducing recovery time, and we have ACTT trial also showing us that definitely everybody was questioning about the mortality benefit, but Professor Vishnu will agree with me that yes, remdesivir also has proven that it has a mortality benefit. Over to you, Professor Vishnu, for your final comments.
As you have summarized aptly, we need to interpret the CT with a background history, because a lot of other diseases can mimic COVID in this era, and CT has to be interpreted along with the RT-PCR report. A final confirmation should always come from RT-PCR. So thanks everyone for joining, and I thank my CCI friends for this opportunity.
Yeah, I also thank CCI and CIPLA for their technical backup. Thank you, and have a good night. See you.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone. Good night.